Welcome to your Networth's Network. I'm your host, Corey McNabb, and this is a networking style podcast where we bring up special guests, learn a little about them, learn about their business, and then how we can all work together. My goal in life is to rise to a place of excellence, and I want to bring you with me. So that being said, let's introduce our special guest today, Miss Kimberly Blackstone.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I am very well, thank you. Sweating over here in the Midwest. I just learned about corn sweat. Did you know about corn sweat, Corey?
No, I don't know about that.
I just learned about it this week. I guess like corn creates like moisture kind of barrier system. And then when it gets to a certain level, it just expands. And so you have this thing called corn sweat. So there's your fun factoid for this Thursday.
Interesting. Okay.
Right?
Wow. I think down here in Georgia we don't notice it, just because it's so muggy all the time.
All the time. It's like Satan's armpits, like nonstop down there in the South.
Yeah. Well, Kimberly, so I know you a little bit. We've been on Get Creative Q&A with together, and we met at Squad Up Summit. But for those who are tuning in, tell them a little bit about yourself.
Oh, that's a loaded question. Where do you want me to start, Corey?
I mean, you can start as far back as day one, if you want.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me. I always enjoyed interviewing you. So now I'm in the seat, but my name is Kimberly Blackstone and I have two sides. So my real estate side, I'm project based, but I close on single family homes. I hold some. I've wholesaled before. I've done lending, private money partnering. I also Capital Connect and I consult on sober living and residential assisted living or any kind of problems that investors are having. So typically people end up in my inbox with a problem and then I come in and then I consult, close it, or connect or collaborate with them. My other side is I'm a nurse by trade, 22 years. I've been in healthcare for 32. And I'm also an author, a CPR instructor. I'm a wellness coach. I have a ministry here in Southwest Michigan. And I do little odds and ends here. I'm writing my memoir. My second women's anthology comes out on 9/24, and then hard copy is coming out in October. And I'm working on my kids' book. So I kind of flex with where I'm at in life, and then just kind of go from there. And so I'm all over the place. But what I'm trying to do also is get out information in regards to my genetic disorder. So I'm also a keynote speaker and a podcast host for the Morby Media team, the Live at 5 every Tuesday. So it's been really fun. I've gotten to interview you and some pretty amazing and dynamic investors. And so I just kind of have fun with it and I just go with the flow. I do have a business partner and we do things together and I consult a lot and collaborate a lot and network, and I still keep my nursing license just in case, but I do this full time. So, and I have two teenager boys that just started high school. One's in 9th grade, the other one's in 10th grade. And so first football game yesterday. So busy, but I try to make it very intentional and do the things that I can pivot when I need to have this work as a lifestyle versus like I need to be here or there or everywhere, you know?
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I was going to say that is a lot of things. I didn't know you did all that. So I'm assuming you didn't just jump into all this at one time, that maybe you started working on one thing, got really good at it. And you know what? I can kind of relate to this. This is how me and my wife, if this is the way you did it, it's how me and my wife feel about kids. We'll have a kid, stress out about how to be parents, especially with the first one.
Yeah.
And then we feel like we got to figure it out. And we're like, oh, this is too easy. Let's add another. So we're about to have our third in December.
Wow. And you're a fireman, right? You, if I remember right from the interview. Yeah. So what do you mean? Like you're doing all the crazy things like I am as well.
Yeah. I think the difference there though is for me, a lot of it is I get told what to do and I just go solve the problem. Whereas I feel like and maybe it's just the way you talk about it. I may be wrong, but it feels like you've embarked on all these different endeavors, and you know, you don't seem like you're fully losing your mind. I mean, I think you got to be a little crazy to be a nurse, but
Right.
you seem like you're handling it well. So, as someone, I can definitely see how we're similar,
Hmm.
because like I want to do all these different things, but I struggle with the launch of all these different things. So how did you get to that point where you're like, you know what, I'm just going to start doing this? And I guess how did it lead to where you are?
Well, first, I think that you're not giving yourself enough credit because you are doing the things and you are jumping in and you're integrating them while being a father and working a very stressful W 2 and saving lives. And so I think you need to give yourself a little bit more credit. But where I started, I was a CPR instructor. I left out one thing. I was a fitness trainer too. So I was morbidly obese, defined by medical standards. I was close to 300 pounds. And I just woke up one day. I was like, what the heck am I doing? And this is over a decade ago. This is before Wegovy and Ozempic and all like the shortcuts, before stomach stapling and bypasses were popular. And I'm just like, what am I doing? Like, this is so stupid. But I come from trauma. And, my amygdala was dysregulated. My hippocampus is probably a little bit shrunk. And so I just was like, I cannot live like this and be a good mom. And so I started my weight loss journey and decided I was going to win a free entry race for the Great Smoky Mountain Half Marathon. I never win anything. So I'm like, I'm not going to win it. I won it. And so I started training and I just got a book, kind of like how I got into investing somewhat. And then I just trained. And then that led to a half marathon. I just went all in and I finished. Yay. And then it went to a full marathon and then triathlon. And then I started off with sprint and then Olympic. And then my big goal was a half Ironman. And so fast forward to, I trained for a year and a half without actually doing one. I had emergency appendectomy, and then there was a hurricane, and then I finally got to the course. And at this point, my health problems were escalating. But as you know, being like anyone that works in a high stress environment, you tend to adapt and your sympathetic nervous system gets all wonky. And so you thrive in those stressful situations, especially coming from people like me with my background. And so I was on my third half Ironman in Northern Michigan, and I was struggling hard that race, but I was very joyful. And I just knew I needed a change. I was going through all these storms, the impending divorce, before I knew I was getting diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos, and prior to my dad's death, like the 3Ds. And so I was sick of nursing, all the regulations, the forced vaccinations, all these things that I couldn't get behind, the forced medications without education and wellness. Because I had went through my own wellness transformation, no surgery, no quick fix, just pure vanilla grit, perseverance in God. And so I just was talking with God the whole time, and he was sending me these signs and people and experiences like he's always done. And so I just fell in love with the area, and I'm like, I'm going to buy a house. Like, forget it. Like, I'm going to do my power move, and I'm going to take money out of the bank, and I'm going to get a second home, and traditionally, and I'm going to figure it out. And so my goal was, I wanted to be close by God so I could continue to grow and evolve with all the storms I was going through. So that's exactly what I did. I bought a little fixer upper and I worked on it. I would drive 3 hours one way and work my butt off for 3 days and then come back. And then because my kids' dad, he is in cardiology, so he has off 3 days. And so we did that back and forth, and then I did it. And then I had a very successful Airbnb, and I reinvested the money until they changed the ordinance. And I didn't have an exit strategy because I was just like, God and grit, I'm doing it. This is, I was like, had no idea. But I joined Gator at that time. And so I met my now business partner, Frank Leone, and it was under contract 3 times, and we did a land contract, and then we mirrored the existing mortgage, and my interest rate was at 3 something. I put theirs at 6. And so now I'm in the process of helping them to refinance and cash me out. So it should be a pretty darn good paycheck. I think like between the Airbnb, my cash flow from the land contract and everything else is just over like 100 and something. And that's without the money for reinvestment into the property. So that was like my first investment. And so I just started investing in myself then on, and just started getting into different programs and mentorships. And then here I am talking to you, and then having, hosting the podcast, the lives at 5 every Tuesday, and speaking with other individuals and hearing their stories. And so that's how I got in to the investing part. But I was doing CPR before. I was a fitness instructor for senior citizens, and I taught, my kids went to parochial, so I worked for free for like close to a decade, and did stuff with the church and the school, and taught PE and sex ed, and I've done ministry and medical missions in Dominican and locally. So yeah, so I have built upon that. And my first story was my weight loss story in a woman's confirmation book, and the proceeds actually benefit locally in Chicago, because I'm in the state shaped like a mitten right by the lake. And so the proceeds help with youth that are struggling, and they have access to fine arts. And so it's just kind of all evolved from one thing. It's kind of like the momentum that like leads and it snowballs. So in a nutshell, that's my story.
Okay. So your weight loss journey, what did that look like? It sounds like you started training for marathons, a lot of running, that type of thing. Were you like hitting the gym at all? Were you doing specific diet? What did that look like?
So I was just talking about this to some moms yesterday in the stands, and because my son's a quarterback, and my other one, he's like 6'2", he's like 14, and he's just a beast. He's my gentle giant. And they're like, man, your kids they're so fast. And I'd never had them in like organized sports, but looking back, I was part of their base foundation for fitness, because I had to integrate. My kids were 15 months apart. I had 2 surgeries in between my last delivery, and then I got pregnant again when my son was 6 months. And so I hung up my stethoscope. I mean, I was working in the church, of course, not getting paid, getting like my rubies on my crown when I get to heaven. But I did go to the gym. I've never been a gym person. I've always been an outdoor person. I love the outdoors, and just that's where I connected with God, and that's where I just had my time with God, that I could just be pounding on the pavement. And so I just very much integrated it organically, and would take them on runs with me. And I still pick up logs and rocks on the beach and throw them like kettlebells. And, but I started off boxing and going to like a boxing class, but I integrated a lot of different things. And then like when I was at the YMCA, they noticed how much weight I was losing, and that I was doing it all naturally and no quick fixes. And so that's what got me into teaching fitness at the nursing homes, because everyone was scared of the old people with the different, O2 and the lines and whatnot. So they called me the Jillian Michaels of senior fitness. And yeah, and that was fun. And then that like kind of went over to the school, and then I did holy yoga and Pilates and different things in PE, and was a sub. So it kind of always like built off of it. But yeah, I was at a gym, but I'm not a gym rat. Like even with Ironman, like the outside is my gym. You get a lake, you swim, you're on a bike, you're biking, and then you run. And then cross training was Pilates and yoga. I was doing like hot and cold, like before it was like cool, like the cold plunges, I would just jump into Lake Michigan because it felt good.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
My kids just came along with me, and that's when they started, and they were running 5Ks when they were 4. and finishing like at 27 minutes. And then I joined a team of my team Triumph, and we actually pushed disabled adults and kids that couldn't compete in races. And we did 5Ks and half marathons and triathlons and stuff. So I've always just integrated community with what I was doing. And that's what I've always done. And as you know, as being in the role that you're doing, you always try to integrate things into your life because you have to make them work when you're doing all the things.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I was curious because I actually I say just started. It's been 2 years since I really started focusing on my fitness
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. And it's funny because I used to go by the mentality that I heard from a comedian in the, if I die tomorrow, do I want to be sore or do I want to have this cake? And so that was how I always viewed it. And now, of course, actually, like last year, I lost 30 pounds. And so now I'm like, no, I don't. I'd rather be sore.
Mhm.
So I don't know.
Do you have to take fitness exams too at the fire department? I'm sure that they probably put you through like a rigorous just training and do you have to do that like every year, like put like a mannequin or a dummy on your back and like run
Mhm.
up like 5
We
flights?
actually just did it yesterday. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So are you sore?
Not too bad. So we put on a plate carrier,
Hmm.
or a SCBA. We'll have our helmet and work gloves on.
Okay.
And basically what we start off with is we take 100 feet of 5-inch hose, which
Hmm.
is pretty big. You
Yeah.
drag it for like, I think it's like maybe 100 feet.
Those are heavy too. You don't think that they are, but oh my goodness, like what are those things made out of? It's like
Yeah.
sludge.
Yeah. You drag that for 100 feet, drop it. You grab another hose that's connected to a tire, drag it 100 feet, grab a ladder, walk around a little course, and then
Hmm.
pull up, let down a ladder twice.
Oh,
Uh, grab, I think they were only like 35-pound kettlebells.
only 35.
You grab those, you walk 50 feet, and then we have a roof simulator.
Okay.
So it's basically just a piece of or an angled plywood with shingles on it and a pad.
Hmm.
You just take
Okay.
it and hit it with a sledgehammer 20 times.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then you got to climb up 4 flights of stairs with a hose pack, drop it, go back down.
There's a gym idea right there. Like, let's start a business, like right there, like come train like a fireman does.
Oh, yeah, there you go. That could work.
All you need is like a little plot of land, and then you can have all these. There's actually something similar in Southwest Michigan. It's called the Woods, and it's a gym in the woods, and they have like all these like little mini obstacles and stuff like that you can go, and they have one for dogs too, so you can take your dog.
Oh, wow.
Hmm.
Okay.
Never
Yeah.
been, but that's a lot, and it's hard too because I do like cake and I am a foodie. And like I told Pace because I talked about my weight loss story on my interview with him back last February, is like food is hard because it's not like any other thing like smoking, drinking, sex, porn, whatever your vice is, right? Like over shopping, over scrolling, doom scrolling. Like you have to eat at some point, you have to eat. And that it was really hard for me because it never goes away. And I now integrate fasting a lot. Like fasting just makes me feel so much better, but I didn't really know about fasting back then. So
Mhm.
I didn't integrate it, but it's hard when it comes to food because you need that nourishment. And even now, even the healthy foods, like the organic foods, everything is so poisoned from the soil with all the chemicals and everything in between. I was a migrant outreach nurse in Southwest Michigan through COVID. And so I made some great connections with farmers. And it was crazy to hear how people from other countries actually use like our products like pop and things that we actually ingest for herbicides, pesticides, and fungicides. They'll just take Coke and just put it in their soil to keep away bugs, or use it to strip stuff on a car. And we're over here. Now it's like, yeah. So it's hard because everything is, I feel like, set up against us. So we are just addicted and enslaved to, big entities.
And see, what's really bad is that beforehand, because my stepdad, he's been a firefighter for like 26 years maybe now.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And so years ago, when I had my first car, there was some issue with it. I popped the hood and the battery was corroded.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, ah, crap, what do I do? He walks out with a Dr. Pepper, opens it, pours it on it, wipes it clean.
Isn't that crazy?
And then sits there and sips it. And I'm just like, God, that can't be bad. Or that can't be good for you.
Right. Yeah.
But terrible. I was also in that mentality but it tastes good, so I'm going to go with it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, actually, speaking of which, me and my wife, I'm assuming you've heard of 75 Hard?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's what we started 2 years ago. That's what helped us. But we actually just finished phase 2 for this year, which is just 30 days of all those things. Mm-hmm. But the diet we chose this time was Whole30.
Okay.
Have you ever done Whole30?
Yeah, I have lots of sensitivities with my genetic discomfort, like just having to trial and error and revisit because your allergies change too. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I have done that. And things change though for me often. I don't know about you, but I always take like the base foundation of what they're offering and then spin it to me what works in my life. And sure. So like the 75 Hard, I did like a God version where I had to read scripture. I had to pray for people. And I integrated fasting and I took away like certain stuff. I've always done that before and I was realizing that like, couple months ago, I was like, I did all these things before they came out. It's just and it really is a wellness journey. You have to do what works for you and your body, because the way that you metabolize stuff and the way that I metabolize stuff can be different. A lot of people don't even know about their bodies. Like if you don't have a complete amino acid profile, then you're not going to even absorb that protein powder that you're putting in your body, right? And so I think education is huge, and Whole30 is one of those things that you're just going back to baseline of what you should be putting in your body. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say the biggest thing I found from that is that I lost all my cravings. So yes. Like once we got done with it, you're supposed to do a reintroduction period where that's where you figure out what you have allergies towards and stuff like that. My wife is pregnant, and so she was like, oh, we're going to do the reintroduction, and then once we have the baby, we'll do it again. And I'm like, well, why do the reintroduction now if there's a good chance it'll change after the baby?
Yeah.
So why don't we just do it again then and then do the reintroduction? So we didn't do a reintroduction this time. But I noticed, like, one, I got used to my wife. She's an amazing cook. So I got used to her preparing food. So when I'm at the station, I would just have my own thing that I would eat.
Which is hard because you guys are foodies too. Just like in nursing, there's food all the time.
Oh, yeah. People coming in, dropping off food all the time. It's crazy.
Potlucks and it's a Tuesday.
Yep. So, but the biggest thing I found was every time I'd go into the grocery store to figure out what I wanted to eat, I'd just be like, I don't have any cravings for anything. Like so before Whole30, I would devour a thing of Oreos.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Like those were my kryptonite. And then after I could walk by it and look at it and go, no, I'm good.
That's
just
awesome.
Keep going. So.
And everyone works differently. Like I'd rather just not have it in my house because I don't have a lot of self-control. But yeah, everyone's different. And that's where fasting too comes in is the ghrelin and the leptin, the hunger hormones just get really regulated, and it just helps with cravings and overall. But as soon as you put that in your mouth, digestion starts like before the food even enters, even the thought, you actually salivate, it goes back to your nervous system and how God has designed you to survive. It's like you literally can't outsmart your brain sometimes. You just have to do as many neural hacks as you can, and whatever works for you might not work for me. And I've coached people and they've come to me like on say 6 to 8 different medications, and then I almost get them off almost of all of them just by doing those like little things and trial and error and everything like that. So kudos to you guys for taking control, because it is hard. I mean, and it's just like we're from the time that we come out of our mother's womb, we are nurtured by food. If you think about it, right? You're on the breast, and the whole cause and effect of the baby and how they survive, like we're reliant on it. So it's definitely something that is, and look at the industry, like there's a gym on every corner. They're like title companies, right? Like, and then we're still overweight and have disease because of even the good stuff now is just the soils aren't what they used to be. The nutrients aren't there anymore. And so you just have to do your best, or your body's just not going to function at all very well.
Speaking of soils, I remember you had posted something a while back about like living off grid, some sort of farm thing. I know we had started talking about that. Is that still in the works, or was that just like, hey, I'd love to do this type thing?
That would be like my big dream. So I would love, because we have so much land around us, and as the farmers are retiring, their kids don't want to take over the businesses, or they're just becoming like way too expensive for the maintenance and stuff. But I would love to have a big care compound and have I would like different versions. I'm actually speaking with April Reynolds right now about a potential in my backyard for affordable housing, because I am the unbankable, because I don't have a W-2 and I'm still legally married on paper for taxes and health insurance, but that's soon going to end. And so I've been struggling to find a place for myself. I mean, I'm an apartment, but everything's in a trust, like the own nothing, control everything. And so I'm fine with that because everything's secure. But in doing so, I just could not find a house around me, because I'm in more of an affluent area in a little beachy town, and there's not a ton of pre-foreclosures, and land contracts are few and far between. There's a university here and hospitals, and housing is unaffordable. And so I started looking for land, and that's when I came across a portfolio of seller finance and a few other acres, like 20 here, 30 here. And so I am looking into possibly developing those with tiny homes. It's funny that you should ask me that, because I was on the phone yesterday for almost 2 hours talking to zoning and realtors and other people that can help this come to fruition. So stay tuned on that. But that would just be more development. And then I would house hack it and then get a tiny home there on the land. But I would love to combine my love with nursing and passion with philanthropy, combined with profit, and do like a care compound and have like tiny houses for the staff. Because let's be clear, like in the ages of TikTok and YouTubers, what people are wanting to wipe grandma and grandpa's butt for like $15 an hour, right? And so to find those people for residential assisted living, meanwhile, we're 1.3 million beds short. I would like to have like affordable housing, like on the back end, like have this big compound, and then have like, have everything like sourced from the land, just like having a village, how it's supposed to be. Like if you look at any other culture, like white people are the only ones that don't stick together, and they don't have their churches and, or their synagogues, their mosques. And we don't have that. Like we don't stick together, but other cultures do. They see the value on sticking together and combining their wealth and all their resources and tools. And so it kind of goes back to that kind of vision of having housing there for the staff, and then having everyone together so you can farm the land, you can use geothermal heating, and then have these like little areas instead of having like one big building to house all this, where you're having to heat and cool it, having these like little different compartments that you can take care of people, whether, you know, it's seniors, or it's a sober living community, or it's battered women's, where you're providing affordable housing for them. And then you can combine it with these like little outbuildings for like arts and crafts, or childcare for the kids, or homeschooling, or homesteading, and utilizing, you know, chickens and cows and the land, and basically just kind of having a care compound, whatever that vision would be. Like, I wouldn't want them all combined, of course, but you know, residential assisted would be just that, or say, so a sober living community would be just that. And so you're just going back to the grassroots. What I started in this journey too was studying what the rich did, and they all had trusts, they all had a business, and they all had real estate. And so it's all about strategies and structure. So if you can structure it to make it work for you, where you can profit, but then solve a problem and create a solution to get people back on their feet, whether it's a senior that's living out their last days with dignity, or if it's someone that's getting clean, or someone coming from an abusive relationship, but having those tools readily available to assist them in that transition without the overhead of having, like, because I see all these big like RELs like closing down, because let's be honest, the government controls so much. If the utility companies are going to charge you this, and then you have importing and exporting and the cost of goods and services, you're going to pay the price, right? Because now you have real estate mixed with a business and souls. And so if you can't control some of that overhead, you're going to go down, right? And so, I mean, you can't control the market. You can only control how you respond to it, and having systems set up in order to mitigate that. And so that's what my huge goal would be, is to have enough wealth to do that and to provide these solutions, because they're needed. And then VAs, the people that just always have an issue with affordable housing. Our veterans are very underserved, and they have, a huge need for housing too, and to serve, the veterans and have affordable housing for them. Whatever like most vulnerable person is, have a little care compound for that demographic.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I know, at least when it comes to veterans, TJ Wynn, which I believe we had talked about earlier, I had him on a little while back. He's actually starting to do like I think he described it, it's like a mix between, it's basically affordable housing for veterans. So
Cool.
it's like kind of Section 8, but strictly for veterans.
Yeah, like HUD-VASH.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say instead of
familiar
VA. I'm like VA. I'm like, wait, what did I just say? I'm thinking the Veterans Administration.
Gotcha. Yeah. So there's that. I don't know if you've connected with him, but that might be an opportunity there. I definitely think like we have similar goals.
Yeah.
My goal is more so on the food side. And I know we were just talking about that, but like what I mean by that is ultimately when I leave this planet, my goal is to have changed the way at least this country views food and procures food. Thank you.
Cool. That's awesome.
Bringing it back to, local farmers, basically.
And the local farmers are they're a dying breed, because it's so expensive now to maintain everything. It's just terrible. I don't know how to solve that problem, but it's a huge problem here in the Midwest. I don't know if it's like that, down there in Georgia, but it's a problem, because there's just not much profit anymore with the cost of overhead. It's just, yeah.
I think one of the big issues is the focus of like monocropping or having a single product, which sounds great, right? If let's say you're raising cattle, the beef you provide is the best or the highest priced product you're selling. Well, intuitively, you want to do more, right? But what happens is that you lose out on all the other things that uplift that profit.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people will focus on, say, have a 1 acre of corn. I'm just using smaller land masses. 1 acre of corn. That's you've got an acre of corn to sell, right? Whereas if maybe you split that with 4 different crops, yeah, you're only getting a quarter of corn now, but add the other 3/4 of other crops, you actually get more profit in the long run. So diversifying is a big thing. That also allows the soil to regenerate more
Yep.
because you've got different nutrients, different
Yep.
plants getting in there.
Rotation. Yep.
So yeah, and a lot of it, like, I say this not having thousands of acres that I have to do this, so take it with a grain of salt if you're watching. If you're a farmer, I apologize if I'm sound idealistic. But like the way I envision the farm that I'm going to build actually won't have a ton of machinery that I have to keep up with. Maybe a tractor or two. But for the most part, it'll all be interspersed. The farm itself will be a little village to where the people who live off the farm and work the farm are actually, like, their houses are in between groves
Yeah.
of apple trees and all these different, like, in the orchard and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Sure.
So
Sounds a little bit like what I envision. Well, come to the Midwest. I mean, there's so much land. I mean, there's ton of land up here. And again, the farmers are just they're wanting to get, rid of it. I mean, there's that portfolio that I was telling you about. That's like 78 acres. And I just spoke with somebody yesterday. That's another 38. Like, it's all over the place. So come on up. Midwest is best, and it's cheaper.
okay, all right, we'll look into it. Well, awesome. Let's see. We got on the topic of health.
We talked about pretty much everything but real estate, right?
I know.
And
that's
that's
the
usually
thing.
what
Like,
happens with
this
me.
doesn't have to be real estate, but that is a big part of it. So, I guess I think you hit on it a couple times. Is there something currently that you're working on that you would want to talk more about?
I mean, I'm really hoping to execute that vision that I was telling you about with the tiny homes and providing a solution to my problem that I have, which is I want to be closer to my kids, but I can't afford the neighborhood and where I live now, right? Like they're lake homes or they're like multi-million-dollar homes. There's not a lot of availability. We have a lot of investors from Chicago that come and they buy up a lot of the real estate, and I can't compete in this market. So that's what I really would love to do, is to provide just a resource and tool to other people that are struggling like I am too, because I don't want to be house poor. Like, I have an RV. I would be fine with just living in my RV and following the sun, but right now it's just not feasible with where my kids are at and still being a mom and all the other things. But I would really like to start there and break into something like that, because the conversations that I've had so far, they seem like very, like it definitely could lead to something. So I would be looking for capital for that. So I've raised capital for medical missions and connected it with other people. But I've never actually raised it for myself. So that would be a need, would be capital in order to do something like this. I don't think I will have a problem with that, though, because I am pretty well connected in that realm. And it just gives me an opportunity to go out there and then hustle some dollars, right? And do something that I haven't really focused on too much. Like, yeah, I get $60,000, $70,000 here, 100, 150 there, no problem. But this would be, a lot more, because then you would be dealing with like zoning and getting septics and utilities, but these things go up pretty quick. So stay tuned on that. I mean, you might have to have me back on to see if it works out, because if this one doesn't work out, I definitely want to try something else. But this particular piece of land, it's right next door to this beautiful farm. There's vineyards across the street. There's an apple orchard to your right. There's an apple orchard to your left. It's just in the fall, it just smells amazing. It's just a beautiful area. It's by right off the highway, and then you have the university, and we have a lot of ministry people here too. Where I'm at in Berrien Springs, actually, Muhammad Ali had a compound here. I think he really dumped a lot. And we were talking about this yesterday at the stadium, because we have this, I don't even know how much it is, multi-million-dollar new athletic center with all like the fancy stuff, and a new, football field, which is good enough for the NFL, but our taxes didn't go up. So I think he dumped some money in our community. But yeah, I would love to start there, because it's such a beautiful piece of property, has like a little pond on it. So continuing with that, and then to see how that goes, that would be my proof of concept, to be like, okay, that worked out. And then I can do this, and then maybe start some of those concepts after I paused residential assisted living in my state, just because the state was trying to pass a bill, House Bill 4041, that would severely limit the way that the operators run their residential assisted living. So I was in the middle of underwriting an acquisition, would have been just under $1 million, with the sprinkler system and different things. And then Michigan was just like, oh, let me pass this law around Labor Day when no one's looking. And thankfully the coalition and the attorneys got on it, and we stalled it, and we fought against it. But they were trying to take a small residential assisted, but make it like a skilled nursing facility, where you needed dietary and social work and nurses and all these other things that would have been non-sustainable. And I would have literally been stuck in a non-performing asset, unable to get my capital partners out, just because someone else's choices. And so that kind of gave me I got a little nervous with that one, because I never want to lose other people's money, of course. And thankfully I haven't so far. But it just made me like kind of pivot with purpose, and be like, okay, I need to look outside of a different state and doing this. And so I started then looking into Indiana and the areas surrounding me. But it looks like that House bill is dying off. And so I might be able to revisit that as well, because again, we're 1.3 million beds short for seniors right now, and the people to care for them as well. So it's like, it's combining my passion with profit and just my love of humanity.
Gotcha. Wow. Yeah, I'm glad that, people were able to catch that, because it seems like government loves to
always in there. Yeah, whether it's a short-term rental, someone's always peeing in my Cheerios, Corey. Like, it's annoying. Like, it's like every single deal that I've done has had problems. Like, my partner said the other day, he's like, you just need one to go halfway smooth, but you're learning a lot. I'm like, yeah, no crap. Like, it's
so it's the best way to learn, I guess.
Woo, yeah, forged in fire, baby.
Awesome. Well, that's good to hear. You were mentioning it'd be a bigger deal, and you mentioned like septic and all that stuff. And of course my thought process goes to well, just get compost toilets and have a gray water system.
I mean, and that's an option.
Lead it into ponds.
Yeah, I mean, these things are meant to be erected like really quickly, so they have sustainability as far as being able to put them on a piece of land like really quickly, and having the means, because they were meant for like emergency shelter, but they also can hold the load of snow, which we get because we're by the lake, and the lake tends to make their own weather, and we get pounded with lake effect. And so there is that. If it was me, I would be okay with that, but being that it's a development and for affordable housing, I don't know how well that would fly. But yeah, when I was a migrant outreach nurse, like, it was crazy. You would just roll up to these farms, and sadly you'd have like one trailer with like 16 people and scabies and picking cockroaches out of people's ears. And it was like really sad, because like there's no air. Some of them didn't have electricity. Like, you had certain farms that did a better job at taking care of their H2 workers. But for the most part, it was really sad. And then it just put it in perspective. Like, we're over here complaining about white woman first world problems, and these people are just, happy to send meat home to Mexico, for their families. And it's just, we always talk about like immigration and all that, but like if you sent back so many people, like the US would shut down. How many people are going to work hospitality jobs or be room cleaners in Vegas or bus boys at the restaurants or pick the crops when it's 95 degrees and they go back to squalor? Like, tell me what American wants to do that. I'm waiting for that one. It's like, so I would like to provide solutions, for those people, that demographic as well, but then to integrate it with lawyers and get them here legally so they have the rights while they're continuing putting their spine into the backbone of America, because they are, like Michigan's a huge agriculture. Like, we produce the most cherries in the whole entire nation. We produce Welch's, 90% of their grapes come from Michigan. So we're big in agriculture up here.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that about Michigan. That's cool.
A lot of people, Michigan, I feel like is a definitely underrated. They think Detroit and like it's like lots of beachy areas. A lot of people come here for vacation, and there's generational wealth. There's agriculture. You can't go anywhere without being by a body of water, whether it's a river, a stream, a pond, a lake, an inland lake within 6 or 7 miles. So. It's definitely it's a gem, but the winters are rough where I'm at.
Yeah. That's all I know of Michigan. I had a lot. I say that I've never been to Michigan. I've been up into Wisconsin.
Okay.
But because I had family up there, and that was only for the winter. I actually, as a Georgia boy, got to see real snow once.
Oh yeah. They have snowmobile trails and stuff too, like up north where my other house is in Onekama. They have staging areas where you can go from the lower, because people forget that it's like this, right? You have the upper and you have the lower, and people forget that, but they have like snowmobile trails that like go all the way up, to Upper Peninsula. And up there it's like moose and bear and coyotes and all kinds, like a little too much for me. I'll stick with my little beach. But hey, there's an open invitation for you to come up to Michigan and check out the land, because you could really definitely do some damage if that was your end goal in order to do stuff like that, because there's a lot of land. And I just read a statistic too, like China owns like 35 or like 40% of land. So like we need to grab bit by bit and take ownership of our land. I mean, it speaks about in the Bible. You have to claim the land and take it over. And if we're not, then other people will. And that's no bueno, period.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've already eaten up about 48 minutes of your time. So unless there's something else you want to talk about, we can move on to the last part of our show.
Yeah, we can keep it rolling.
Awesome. So just a few questions I ask every show. Pretty basic. First off is, what made you want to be on the podcast today?
Well, we got to know each other through the podcast with the Morby Media team. You were on twice, and so I just thought you were a really cool dude, and we bantered back and forth. And like you said, between our busy schedules and responding to people, to our posts and whatnot. So it kind of just happened organically like that, and just like, hey, what's going on? Let's talk some more off of social media or doing the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, again, I appreciate you so much for coming on here.
Thanks for having me. It's been fun. You talked about a lot of cool things for sure.
Oh yeah, I love getting to know, like, really. I say I love getting to know. What I've found is that when I talk deeply with people, that a lot of us really have the same ideas.
Yeah, you can definitely
might be slightly different, but
yeah. For sure. Yeah. Well, just like when the first time you were on the podcast and you talked about the MUDs, and I connected, with them, and I'll shoot over, a prayer, like you connect in other ways, right? And like fasting, nutrition, like I started talking to KJ about like fasting and juicing and nutrition. So you never know what it's going to lead to. And that's what I love about this, is that it might start off with real estate, but then you might connect with them and you might be a coach, or you might help them with something else. Like I said on my interview with Pace, like I am interested in relational kind of transactions, not transactions. Like deals are a dime a dozen. What you can't get is this, right? That organic, awesome relationship where you can be like, hey, Corey, what's going on? And, not necessarily keep in touch all the time, but then pick it right back up where it was. And then it's just like, that's what I love, because I don't come from a big family. And so the people that I choose to have in my life are my family. And that's like why community is so important to me, is because I'm building my own, like your little thing up there, your network is your net worth. Like that's so true.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of net worth,
Mm-hmm.
what is your goal for your net worth?
So we talked a little bit about this pre-show. And so mine would be just to have the freedom to do what I want, when I want, to kind of have that level of money where I'm like, whatever, like I don't even have to worry about any of that. So it's not really a monetary goal that I have. It's more of a lifestyle goal that I can have, and I want to buy existing businesses too. As much as I love real estate, I have noticed really quickly about the nuances that can happen with these single family homes. Like I just shelled out $7,000 for an AC unit on a sub 2 wrap that's not cash flowing because the market changed, right? So it's like I have learned the hard way with lessons that, these single family homes they're not for me unless they're cash cowing. Like, so to me, it's supported by a business with residential assisted living or like sober living or whatnot. And so it's not so much as like, I want to be like a billionaire or millionaire. I want to have the financial freedom and using structures and strategies like trust, but I like to be diversified. And like some people will be like, oh, well, park it here, park it there. I like strategies and structures with proven methods. And so, gold and silver is another one. Land is huge for me. I want to own some land. And what people can't take away from you is your talent, right? And your negotiation and bartering. That's wealth to me. Is in order, like if crap hits the fan, you want people like us on your team because we can save your life. We can grow stuff. We can hunt. You have guns. I have ammo. I have guns. Those are assets to me because if someone needs them and they don't have them, guess what? You are going to pay the price for them, whether it's in like say real estate or like food or bartering. Like I love the bartering system. So that's wealth to me, just having a lot of different exit strategies. I want to have an exit to my exit. And so to me, that is what wealth looks like for me. Not so much is like, I want so many doors or apartment complex, but I would really like to shift into buying existing businesses and scaling those, stabilizing them, or selling them because it's just a different beast, I think, than real estate. And it just, I think, provides a little bit more in my eyes, with my vision, a little bit more security, where you're not like pumping out like all these nuances that can happen with, creative finance, which I love and which I will always utilize and stuff. But there are nuances, I think that sometimes we're not always discussing either, about how you can't control markets and prices and stuff like that. So I want the businesses that are Amazon proof, AI proof, COVID proof, shutdown proof. And to me, that's medical and the trades. And so I'm going to start, pivoting to that. So I want to build, wealth like that, to be able to have a diverse portfolio of businesses, land, coins, like the whole gamut.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm a chameleon.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, then, out of all of these things that you're doing, what would you say is a strength of yours?
Being able to pivot with purpose and adapt, and to be that chameleon. Like, put me anywhere and I'm going to be fine. Like, you put me anywhere in the US, I can teach a class, I can teach a fitness class, I can show you how to save a life with CPR, Narcan, the life vac. I can pivot and like be able to provide value in some way that somebody needs it, because I am that person that I have done so many different things and I have the wisdom, and I'm not a statistic. Like, I left home when I was a little over 12, and I didn't become, a crackhead with 9 baby daddies per se and end up on Jerry Springer, and I beat the odds. And so I'm able to build trust pretty quickly with my nursing background because I am authentic. And they say that the vibration of authenticity is 4,000 times greater than love. And so that's why I find myself listening to the old dude at Meyer talk about his hip replacement, as I'm like, my phone's blowing up, right? Because I'm that person. So yeah, I would have to say that's my strong suit. Is you put me in the White House, I'm going to know how to be, submissive or use the right fork or have the right conversation, but put me in the hood, I can put some Carhartts on and have a Glock and not die, right? And so I'm very versatile and I can adapt, and change doesn't scare me. I invite change, and I enjoy it. And it probably has a little bit to do with my chaotic childhood, because I've always thrived in chaos. And so when you thrive in chaos, when it's not chaotic around you, it doesn't feel safe because you're so used to always doing all the things. And I think nurses by trade, we solve people's problems. We're kind of enablers to an extent, right? Because we're always solving other people's problems. So I would have to say the versatility of adaptation.
Well, all right. That's not a bad one to have. So then on the opposite side of that, what is your weakness?
Caring too much about others and putting other people's, like, when you're on the plane and they're like, put your oxygen mask on before you put others, doing that, being the sacrificial lamb for other people and enabling them, and just being that having a healthy boundaries and accountabilities with people's actions, not being so trusting. I mean, I came from a field where you couldn't fail forward. If you fail forward, you kill people. And so there was you always had to have a trusting relationship in medicine. I was always like usually a leader. Like, I was on the code team. I've done all kinds of nursing, ICU, CCU, PCU, OR, ER, you name it. I've pretty much done it. And so coming from a medical background where you had to trust your colleagues, to like now where you can't trust anybody and everyone's sus, and having to do due diligence. And here's the thing about due diligence: they can have the best heart, the greatest intentions, but until you have to go to war and there's capital involved, you don't know how somebody's going to respond. I'm going through a partnership breakup right now. I'm going to start asking people their health. If I would have went in as a lender, I would be owning the business and the property, but I went as a partner because I'm very relationship driven. And so I thought it was going to be, like a marriage, not a one night stand. And so that's, I think my toxic trait is always finding a redeeming quality in someone. When I see the red flags, I'm like, oh, that's not so red. That's a little bit more pink. And so having those healthy accountability and boundaries, and I'm getting better now. It's just block, delete, moving on. And that's huge for me being a nurse, because again, you had to trust your colleagues. And so it's completely foreign for me not to trust someone, because if someone says, their lab value is this, we need to give that, and you're checking blood with me and checking, drips and stuff, you have to believe that person or people die. And so that would be a big weakness, but I'm refining and definitely finding a nice common ground where I'm not being like over trusting, but I'm still having hope, because I feel like when you give up hope or you tend to look at the worst in people, then that's not good either. So I have to continue to have that faith in God that he's going to provide me with the right people at the right time that are going to help me, achieve my goals.
That's interesting, because you actually put one of my biggest struggles into words there.
Yeah, which was that?
Well, until you talked about, you have to trust people in nursing.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing for firefighting. Like, I trust that my crew, if something happens, is going to get me out of a burning building.
That part, right?
So, like, and I've struggled with that this whole time. Everybody, I even told my wife a while back, because she's very, very cautious, which is why we're we're perfect for each other. Um, you know, I don't remember what it was. Something came up and I was like, oh, this seems great. He says it's this. And she's like, yeah, but like, have you checked it? I'm like, he said it was. Why would he lie?
Mm-hmm.
And that's been my whole mentality, is that I'm going to trust you until you give me a reason not to.
Yeah.
And so
And trust is earned.
yeah,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
it's tough
Mm-hmm.
in this industry because you do have to be very cautious, because while
Agreed.
yes, if you find that great partner and all that stuff, you can trust them as much as you want, but like,
Mm-hmm.
not everybody in the industry is your partner.
No,
You know?
no. And I mean, and sometimes you have to go through those lessons, and you have to go through the bad, just like dating, right? Most people don't find their spouse on the first time. And again, these people have good intentions, but if they have W-2s and they have over leveraged in their personal time too, you don't know how someone's like, you're going to be stuck holding the bag. And that's not always, like, for someone like me that doesn't have like all this extra help. I'm kind of a solopreneur because I'm very project based. I don't have all those people behind me. And so I'm the one on the phones with the attorneys. I'm the one talking with the processors and the different people. And so that makes it difficult, and if you don't have that partner that can go to war, like I can call Frank and be like, okay, I need this done. And I'm going to trust that he's going to do, like, he's actually, he knows exactly what to do if something happens to me, with my trust on he has my kids' number. Like, those are the kind of people that you need to surround yourself with, that you can trust, that has proven battle buddies. Because when you have to stabilize an asset because things are circling the drain, either you're going to go down or your whole ship is going to go down. So you have to choose that. So, and you don't know that until you're in the thick of things. Unfortunately, you just don't. And so when you find your people, you have to, like, stick to them.
Absolutely.
So we would probably be good together. Hint, hint, with the land. Gonna put that out there, Corey.
Yeah. Just I mean, we're looking to move anyways. Just gotta see if I can convince the wife to go that far.
Have an RV. I mean, it'd be a little tight with the kids and stuff, but you're always welcome.
All right. Yeah,
I
let her
love
know.
hospitality. I love hosting people. I love people. I love showing people my state and taking them to the wineries and, all the different amazing things that we have around this area. So it's an open invitation.
All right. I'll let her know. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. For sure.
So 2 more questions for you. What do you need help with that's going to make you money in the next 30 days?
Capital and prayer.
Okay, cool. So guys, if you want to pray for her, or if you got capital, hit her up, which leads us to our last one. Where's the best place people can get in touch with you if they got capital or they want to pray for you?
You can connect with me I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I check my messenger. You can email me. I have the website, ksbsolutions.net. That's my coaching. Perfect timing. Look at you. You can put your email in there and connect with me. There I have like a little jot form if you need coaching or you want me to speak at an event. I do a lot of public speaking too. Some of it's free, some of it's paid. So it just depends on the topic. CPR, I'm also on the state board for prevention of cardiac death in youth. So I like to get the initiative out there because cardiac arrest is a health crisis that no one's talking about, especially after post-COVID. Unless someone goes down on an NFL or on the screen, then they forget about it. And so that's huge. And then just the opiate crisis that we're going through too with the Narcan, and even like choking, like one person dies every 5 days, so just getting the education out there. So that's some ways that they can connect with me. And, again, I connect sometimes with real estate, but it turns into something else or a friendship.
Right. Awesome. Well, Kimberly, that's all I have. I really appreciate you letting me take a little over an hour of your time today.
Great. Yeah. Talked about a lot of stuff.
Yeah. I feel like I know you a little better now, so that's good.
Same.
But yeah, that's all I got. I really appreciate you coming.
Well, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to go ahead and send you back and close this thing up.
All right. Adios.
All right. Well, guys, that's our show. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I shouldn't have to say this, but if you enjoyed the show, like and subscribe. I shouldn't have to say it because you should have already done it. It's that simple. Okay. Shooting for a goal. I'm not going to tell you what the goal is, but if you haven't subscribed, what are you doing? How are you going to know when awesome people like Kimberly are going to be on the show? Right? So fix that problem. Anyways, guys, next week we'll have another great guest. And until then, peace be with you. Be safe. Love you guys. Have a wonderful week.